The Harris Center, making research work.
I love what I do. I'm really, really passionate about what I do. I'm passionate about research. I'm a closet quantitative sociologist, I think. I love numbers, and I love looking at numbers, and I love looking at trends. And I love speaking with people. People are so interesting, and there's all kinds of patterns, and lots of things aren't surprising. But when you get out of the conceptual world and you go out into the real world, if you will, and you talk to people about their lives, it's interesting. People are interesting, and I like that.
Migrating complexity, the ebb and flow of people, leaving and returning.
I'm from central Newfoundland. I grew up in Lewisport, and I kind of grew up in an environment where we were sort of shipped off. It's that whole notion of learning to leave. If you want to make something of yourself, you must leave. So I decided to go as far away as I possibly could. Finally, I'd gotten 10 years down the road, and I thought, I miss Newfoundland. All this trying to get away, I'd missed it. And I thought, I need to go back. So I applied for a PhD in sociology. You tend to think men move in primary industries for work, and that's the kind of story we get for Newfoundland as well, and the story for a lot of rural resource communities. But there's a whole other context. I mean, it's very much more complex for men and for women. I really want to understand women's experiences and their experiences around migration from their own point of view. I had moved so much, and what was that related to? Were they economic decisions? Was it love? What was making me and what was leading to those decisions for me and to come back? So all of these themes, especially for women, I thought were really important. And that's what led me to my research. And I swear that it reminds me of a train. In our province, we have this need to understand, rural survival, rural viability, rural resilience, some of these words that go around, and rural policy and what that means. So my research, because it's connected to rural and because it's about migration, can speak to all of these things. How do we understand people who come back? That's a government thing. How do we, because people are like, how do we attract people back? Because we know people are going to leave. The women that I spoke with wanted to go back because they wanted to be close to their family. The support that you need to raise a family in a particular place that you enjoyed as a child, and you can work there and raise your kids and have a support network that includes your parents, and especially to help you with all of those responsibilities, makes it easier for you to be working full-time and potentially with your partner who might be commuting, because some of the women had partners who were commuting. It's all part of a strategy, and when you start sort of taking the pieces apart, you get to see how there's a lot of decision-making involved and power involved in trying to make it work. And they're often making these decisions in a household context. So with the kids and the husband, and all of this is happening simultaneously. It's multi-layered. How do we increase the influx of families into communities? And what's the infrastructure around that? How do we maintain services at a level that's acceptable to people? It's the service question. How much? How little? What's enough? I can deal with the fact that I might have to go to, say, Gander for a specialist, or I might have to come to St. John's for a specialist appointment. But if I can go to my family doctor, and there is a family doctor there, then okay, that'll affect my decision to want to be there. I mean, health is the big one, and education too. What's the school system like here? Will my child have a good education in this particular area? Are there lots of playgrounds? Are there places for children to play? Are there places to support me and my child playing and together? And that sort of, and so people will look at those sorts of things, and those are places where government can play a role because they fund these things. And so if her rural is not my rural, and her rural isn't dying, from whence did this dying truth come? When the census comes out and we watch all of this exodus from everywhere outside of the Avalon, for example, and everyone there's a collective heave-ho sigh of the death of rural Newfoundland, and you sort of think, wait a second, what if we started to think about migration as normal, as mobility in a normalized way? People are moving. People have always moved. They will continue to move, and it gets even more complex now when we talk about this notion of globalization, fluidity, mobile populations. How would this change the way we see ourselves? How would it change? Could it change the way we approach policy from a government point of view, Often we think that we're just sort of pushing rocks around in the sand and that, politicians aren't really listening to what we're saying and, it's too convoluted for anyone in the real world to understand what it is we're talking about. We're trying to move on towards those beyond that, but I'm doing it because it's really interesting. People are interesting, teaching is interesting, and it's that sort of really happy feeling that you get inside.
Researching migration. People on the move.